Exactly 30 minutes after 8. Welcome to my banner on the AM show. So, government acquires land, or land is legally owned by government, and certain people without documentation decide to settle on the land for a number of years, sometimes 8, 10 years, and make the places where they settle their home. Government decides, or an organization decides, time for me to get my land back. And the human rights people talk about human rights issues when people are asked to leave places where they settle and they know themselves that it is illegal. What's the human rights issue with this one? I'm sure some people are asking. Today we're talking demolition and human rights issues, and my guest is Dr. Lawrence K. Amasu. He's the Executive Director of Amnesty International.
Sorry, I missed it. Missed it.
Missed it. Okay, I gave you Doc. Okay, yeah. All right. Good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I hope you're well too.
I'm very well.
Does Amnesty International have a position on generally demolition and human rights?
Definitely, Amnesty International has a position on that issue. And in fact, in Ghana, that is our major campaign areas. And basically, it's that under no circumstances should we use forced eviction. And I will explain forced eviction. Forced eviction does not mean that governments will not move people from one place to another. It simply means that there are international standards that we all have signed to that will observe when it comes to moving people from one place to another.
Okay.
It simply says that there will be a genuine consultation with the people involved. It also says that there will be adequate time for people to be able to move on their own. There will be a plan for either relocation or compensation for people.
Okay, and it really doesn't matter how you came to settle on the piece of land.
Does
I mean,
not.
if you're illegal.
It does not. In fact,
so would this apply to me, an individual? I acquire a piece of land somewhere, and I don't do anything to it, so it's just there. And I realize later on that somebody has settled on it. Do I have to follow these things that you're saying? I mean, the land legally belongs to me.
Yes.
Do I have to give you notice to eject you on my land?
In fact, in that particular example that you have given, we all have laws in the country which you can resort to. You can go to the law courts and say that this land belongs to me. Somebody has taken it. It's just like somebody has stolen your property. So you go to the court to get a redress. We're talking about government and the people in this particular case, where there's a need. Let me say that in every society, and in our country as Ghana, human development is the goal. All other things that we do are just strategies for us to ensure that we develop human beings. And if we continue to go into forced eviction the way we do it, what we are doing is to push people more into abject poverty.
But let's just take Ajay Kojo,
yes,
which is the very recent case. What was forceful about what happened? They were given some kind of notice over a certain period.
Yes. They may be given some notice. Is this a genuine notice? Is it really genuine that they were consulted? Is it true that adequate time was given? And it should not just be the government just gets up or the authorities just get up and write a note and send to somebody that it's time for you to move. That is not the issue here. There are various processes that government need to go through. Adequate, genuine consultation with the people. And when this happens, the first question we want to ask is, how come the authorities waited for those people to construct or even build on the land when they know that the land belongs to government? What were the reasons why the people went there? Were they aware that they should not go? Because I know that people bought land there and they built. So what happened?
They even got permits to put up the buildings.
These are the issues. So who gave the permit? Where if TMA is saying that the people are living there illegally, why was it that when the first person put down a foundation, nobody went there to stop them?
But should it be somebody's responsibility, really, to have stopped them?
It should be. It should be, because if you have your own property and you all of a sudden you see somebody going there to start building on it, wouldn't you stop the person? Yes, so if government thinks that that place is not for individuals to build on, immediately the first person went there to start a foundation, that person has to be stopped. But we allow people, several people, it's not 1, 2, 3, 10 people we are talking about here. We are talking about a big population, because we also the kind of distraction that went on. So it was not only one individual who was living there. If it was one individual living there, we would say that, okay, maybe the authorities did not know. But this one, several people went there, and it's several years. How come that this is the time that we realized there was a need for people to live? Okay, that is okay. If this is the time that we know that people should leave the land, it is also time for us to look at the processes that we all signed to, that we'll observe. That is genuine consultation, adequate. If we talk about adequate, it's not just 6 months kind of thing we are talking about, because if people have lived at a place for 10 years and you want to leave them, and you want to move them, then there's a need for a real adequate time or period for them to move.
And then you also talk about compensation.
Compensation.
But
compensation.
Wouldn't this be... wouldn't people also take advantage of this situation, in that, I mean, if you want to be compensated, then you go and settle on a land that you know is owned by governments?
That is why we're saying that immediately authorities say some people going to live somewhere, action should be taken immediately. So
what if authority, for some reason, does not?
If you don't
does it give people the right to...
Well, in fact, in this case, what we have heard several times people say is that they bought the land, which means that they did not know that the place belongs to somebody else. All they know was that there's a land and people are selling it. And of course, if you know that land is somewhere and people are selling and people are buying, the first thing you also want to do is to go in to buy. And our authorities were looking on while the land were being sold. My problem is, why do we wait for the land to be sold? Is TMA telling us that they did not know that people were buying the land? Did they?
Or maybe TDC, for that matter, because the land
okay,
is
TDC,
more
yeah,
theirs.
Yeah, TDC. Are they telling us that they did not know that people were buying the land or people were selling? I cannot believe that they did not know. Because if people have lived there for 10 years, then somebody should have known that something is happening, and action should have been taken a long time before we even have several people living there anyway. Okay.
Let me just read to you a bit of information that I got from accountabilityproject.org.
Yeah.
And it says the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, and this was some time back, actually appealed to authorities to exercise the greatest level of circumspection in their effort to rid the country of illegal structures. And in addition, they said they should ensure that such exercises were carried out with due regard to international human rights norms and standards. And I guess that's what you've been outlining.
Exactly so.
So per this international human rights norms and standards, how long should governments give to persons who have settled on their lands illegally?
Unfortunately, the international standard did not specifically say this number of months, this number of years. It's just an appeal or common sense for us to say that if somebody has been living at a place for 10 years, we know the implications of particularly in this part of the world where poverty stares us in the face. And those people who are living in Nigeria Kojo land, most of them have struggled to be able to live there. So if you ask me, I will not be able to give you the number of months or number of years that people should live, but it is also important for authorities to say that, okay, somebody has lived here for 20 years, somebody has lived here for 10 years. How many months, years should I give that person to be able to resettle?
But you know, I guess sometimes when you hear the stories, the human interest stories that come out of some of these exercises, you tend to wonder. Here's a woman who's been a nurse for quite some time. She acquires the land. She actually buys the land while she's still working. Goes on retirement, yes. You know, is able to put up something and then goes on retirement, and then her building is demolished.
Yes.
And she's got children.
Yes.
Now she's not actively working.
Yes.
She's on retirement,
That's
getting
right.
just some church retirement package at the end of every month.
Yes.
And then her house is demolished, so herself and her children have no place they can call home now. What happens to a person like that?
Yeah, this is why the international world saw that, okay, sometimes this kind of situation will come. So that's why they laid down the procedures that, well, if this sort of thing happens, there should be a compensation at a certain point.
So what sort of compensation would be enough for a family like this?
That would be...
I mean, then you're saying governments give them another home somewhere?
Yes. In fact, for example, the slum area that we're talking about, people, Old Fadama, for example, if government wants to develop that place into maybe a modern city, what we think the government will do is to relocate the people. Either that will give them enough money to be able to go and build another place for themselves. So the nurse that you're talking about, there should be enough money given to her to be able to, even if he's not able to, let's say she builds 3-room bungalow. Even if he's not able to get money from the authorities to build 3 rooms, he should be able to get at least 2 rooms somewhere to live in. This is a national disaster we're talking about. And when it happens, when national disaster happens, we all rally around and support the people involved. It is the same thing that we have to do when these sort of things happen. And to avoid these situations, that is why the international world sat down and say, okay, you need to go through these processes. Unfortunately, in this part of our world, we don't want to follow these processes.
But shouldn't you, for instance, and I'm talking Amnesty International and other human rights organizations, you've seen these exercises go on every now and then.
Yes.
You've been talking. It means that your voice has not been heard.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you go beyond the talking?
Well, I think that we have been campaigning. I think that a lot has been achieved because I believe that there are some city authorities who recognize what Amnesty and other human rights organizations have been doing on this particular forced eviction issue, and they have been taking action. But that doesn't mean that everybody will just accept the campaign immediately. So sometimes these sort of things happen. But let me say that we have not stopped at this point. What we also do is what we call human rights education, not for city authorities only, but for individual Ghanaians as well. That when you moving into a city, these are the implications, and people should be aware. So for us, we do human rights education in schools. We do human rights education in communities to lay bare issues that people will face. Particularly if you come to the city, you should know that these are the kind of things that you will come to face. It's human beings' character. You may campaign, you may say a lot and people will hear, but people will go ahead and do anything anyway. I think this particular Ajay Kojo issue it's gone even beyond human rights abuse. I think that is callousness. It is also, for me, I see it as a sadist behavior, because if this number of people are living and you cannot make a plan to help them to get out of this situation, and because I heard after the demolition, NADMO went there to put up a tent.
Yeah, which subsequently some other persons
went
to destroy.
Yeah, I mean, if people are in this kind of difficulty, there's a need for us all to rally around and help.
But the difficult thing really is, why would you demolish somebody's building and come and put up a tent on that same land for the person to live in?
Yeah, well,
I mean, it doesn't make sense, does it?
No, yeah, that is why you could see clearly that there was no plan. If there were plan, there would have been the first stage of the genuine consultation and adequate information and a plan to either compensate, even if it's not adequate enough for people to build. At least they will see that, okay, if some effort had been made, or there should be a plan for relocation. But what we have seen means that there was no plan at all. There was no discussions at all.
And it seemed to me as though, okay, they didn't care after all. The land belongs to us.
Yes.
And if you're on it, you're illegal.
Yeah.
And if we demolish your buildings and put away all your stuff, we don't care what happens to it. I mean, that's your business.
It's just to say, go to hell. That's the kind of thing that's, for me, when I look at the situation, that's what I interpreted it. But that should not be the case. I will want to say again that for Amnesty International, it does not matter whether the people were even living there illegally or they were living legally. Human rights is human rights. If the people are living there illegally, there are some certain things you need to do as a leader of your area. There are certain things you need to do for everybody to feel comfortable. But the way Ajekojo people were treated, for me, clearly, nobody even thought about the processes that had been laid down. Nobody even thought about the people, their plights. And the subsequent statements that have been made tells me that nobody cares about the people. And that is not the best. Because for us, human development is the goal. All other things, all other things that we do are just strategies to ensure that we achieve that human development goal. And if we are rather pushing people into abject poverty, then I do not know what we are up to.
So what can the people do? Because this is Ghana we're talking about. This issue came up, it was hot, everybody jumped on it. We heard people say all sorts of things, some people sympathizing with the people there. Last Friday, some places got flooded because of the rains. Now attention has moved from Ajekojo now to the flooding situation. What can the people there, the people who are affected, and indeed the people who have been affected by any of these exercises, what can they do?
Well, I think that definitely they should go for redress. They should not just...
Where?
Well, I think we still have to say that our court system is where we should go to. So I would suggest that people should not just leave this matter. They should go to the courts for a redress, because that is also part of the processes. If all these processes fail, people who are involved have to have access to a justice system that will redress the situation. I will encourage civil society also to support the victims to be able to go to court to get a redress. I think that even if nothing is done at all, some amount of compensation has to be given to our brothers and sisters who suffered. There are a lot of things that we can discuss on this issue. If you look at this paper, the Ghanaian Time or Daily Graphic.
What date, please? Okay, this is a Daily Graphic.
Yeah,
January 24th.
Yeah, you just want to look at.
And this is on the front page.
Yeah, that's a baby of about 4 years, putting his hand in the mouth and looking on in disbelief. It's just like he's asking, can individuals be so wicked? Look at that small girl. The kind of question he's asking herself. And what future are we building for our children? I think that our president should come in this matter. I want to use this forum to appeal to our president to come into this matter. The harm has been done, but I think that some amount of compensation has to be given to the victims.
And we're not saying exactly how much would satisfy them at this point.
No, at this point we cannot. We can only do assessment to be able to say this is what we can do. We cannot just get up and say 10,000 or 5,000. There needs to be some kind of assessment. But the important thing is there should be a plan to give some amount of compensation. We cannot just leave our people the way we do. Otherwise, we are just increasing the poverty level of people.
So you remember that some time ago, we were seeing demolition exercises being carried out sometimes at dawn, sometimes in the absence of the occupants, and then now we are seeing whether you are there or not. We have given you some kind of notice. The writings on the buildings, you know, yes, when they say stop work,
yes,
remove by this date,
yes,
what does it mean? I mean, isn't that notice enough?
That is not a notice enough. It is otherwise anybody can just get up and write such notices on somebody's building. The important thing is you have to meet the people and do a lot of consultation with them and explain to them why they have to leave. And after that, a clear notice. This may even come into public domain that these people have been given this amount of notice, and they are all aware, and the public is aware, and everybody is aware. Just going to write on somebody's building, remove, that is not the best. Well, of course, if enough notice is given, there should be a plan. There should always be a plan. You are talking about sometimes we see people, structures demolished at dawn. Those are things that are under the international law that you cannot go at dawn when people are sleeping. You have to go at a time when people are aware that this is going to happen, and there should be a police who should protect the people, not protecting people who are destroying only, but the people who are living there. But most often we see that the protection is given to the people who are destroying rather than the people who are living there. The protection should be for the two, so that we don't lose lives, so that we don't maim people. Because we are Ghanaians, we have to protect everybody, every individual.
So government is aware of this law, right? I mean,
government is aware.
And is signed onto this treaty.
Government is aware because we speak with our city authorities, and we believe that they know about these regulations or procedures. And a simple procedure that we need to follow.
Okay. Well, Mr. Lawrence Amasu, Executive Director of Amnesty International, we all hope, and indeed we can only hope and keep hammering on this issue. We hope something differently happens. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And
continue
that's my
the
banner.
good work.
Thank you on the AM show. Stay with us. The show is brought to you by Mixi Coffee.